So silence your cell phones, hold your applause, and tune into the truth.
Oh, you didn't know? Your ass better call somebody.
Getting beat up by 9 guys in Syracuse, to me, there's not a whole lot of shame in.
From the 315 to the world, this is the Heel to Face podcast.
The cream of the crop! Wow, man, freaked out!
Follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Heel to the Face.
I said, are you ready?
From Armory Square in downtown Syracuse, New York, let's send it now to Brandon and Jared.
Bad luck seems to be my middle name. They might as well tag me up with my buddies from Syracuse.
Another edition of the Heel to the Face podcast is on the air. We're coming up on Christmas, coming off of WWE TLC and NWA's IntoTheFire. And, well, even the last show of Ring of Honor, if you want to talk about that a little bit. Joined, as always, to the left-hand side, if you're watching on YouTube, Brandon Icebreaker Clements. You can find him on the Twitter at Icebreaker21. Myself, you can find at KRockJared on both Twitter and Instagram. So without further ado, let's get this show underway. We'll talk about some TLC results. First off, I guess, with TLC, how did you like the format of the show? With no main event really on the line, no championship on the line. Bray Wyatt and The Miz, I thought maybe was going to be the main event. It ended up being the Women's Tag Team Championships that closed the show, and then the big scuffle at the end that we'll maybe find more about this upcoming week on SmackDown. But what did you think about the format of the show, the layout? When you were watching the show, I guess, were you thinking, what is the staple of this pay-per-view?
Yeah, that's a great question. To me, there wasn't much of a staple here, I don't think.
No main event. I mean,
no,
there was a final match, but no main event.
No, I mean, I'm not that disappointed with the fact that you had the women's matches, the end of the show, final match of the night. I was okay with that. I thought the match itself was pretty decent. I mean, minus a couple botches in there, which, come to find out later on, Kairi Sane was in.
Yes.
Reportedly had a concussion, and I didn't notice it until I went back and watched it again because I saw it all over Twitter and whatnot, and I saw that Becky Lynch kind of was like helping her up, and they were
bringing her to safety, I guess.
Yeah, like trying to help her out. The thing, so Becky is not getting any flack, which she shouldn't, because I think she did the right thing. Like, you could tell, like, she knew that something was going on, so she didn't hit her in the head with the chair again. Like, she did it. She kind of hit her some. They Kairi Sane countered, I think it was, if I remember properly. I mean, that was cool. I know a lot of people are not happy with Charlotte, the way she handled it, like knowing that potentially that Kairi was not not with it. Like, she was always, it seems like she was concussed, wasn't at her full strength, and kind of wasn't really there. A lot of people thought that she should have noticed that, and I was reading some comments on Twitter, and like people were blowing up Charlotte on that, saying that that's stuff you learn in the intro level of like wrestling. Like, if you know somebody's injured, there's ways to go about the match. What was your take on that?
I mean, from what I saw with Charlotte, I mean, I'm not too versed in that, so I don't want to say too much, but I didn't see anything that really stood out to me.
I didn't either. I was just reading comments on social media, because they're obviously there's a lot of internet experts, we know, quote unquote.
Some people were saying it, and one of the people we work with here at the station who follows the show, Jordan, was mentioning me on Twitter that he says that he might have thought that whole scuffle at the end was to distract from the fact that Kairi Sane was hurt.
Oh, 100%.
You think that? Because I think
so.
That the scuffle, not the scuffle. We're talking the Roman Reigns, all that. I think that was pre-planned, and I think that was to distract from the fact that the women's tag team titles finished off the show and maybe weren't strong enough to really go off the air with.
Here's what I'll say.
You want to go off the air with an image of Roman?
I'll add to that. I think the scuffle itself, that was already pre-planned, like backstage and whatnot. I think one of our loyal listeners is I think he's onto something there. I would say that I agree with him in that aspect. I don't think they were supposed to come out. I think because of the injury, because here's the thing: the referees have the IBFs, and they can talk back to the producers and Vince and Triple H.
Well, Vince and Triple H reportedly weren't at TLC.
That's the other part of it too. Who was back there producing? That's what we don't know. I don't know who it was, but typically in that situation, you're supposed to have Triple H.
Michael Hayes.
Maybe Michael Hayes. But I mean, we at least know it's not Arn Anderson. I mean, we remember about that whole situation with Alicia Fox. Yeah. But I think it was one of those things where they brought it out there, and I think to his point, I think it was a distraction. Trying to make it as a distraction to the seriousness of Kyrie's injury. That's my take, and I know we disagree, but I think
I just feel that there wasn't a main event of this pay-per-view.
No,
I
for
feel
sure.
this pay-per-view was a perfect example of why the WWE Network exists. I feel that if this was a traditional pay-per-view event, it might have set some records for low buy rates. I really feel that if this was back in the pay-per-view era, I know it's in December that we currently have the current record holder, December to Dismember, which is the lowest buy rated pay-per-view under WWE in its history, with I think under 90,000 buys or something like that. I don't want to say that this would have reached that, but it might have been close because there was really no main event. You had Bray Wyatt, but you had Bray Wyatt not as the Fiend. You had Bray Wyatt not defending the championship. The guy he's currently in a feud with, Daniel Bryan, made an appearance, but wasn't, in the match itself. And kind of taking that, what did you think of Bray Wyatt at wrestling for the first time, not as the Fiend? Fans sure loved it. I thought it was pretty interesting. I didn't realize that the Firefly Funhouse theme song had so many verses.
I didn't either.
And Daniel Bryan then coming out at the end looking very, I'm not just younger, but I want to say he's the youngest he's ever looked since joining WWE.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I'll start with your point about Bray Wyatt. We kind of talked about it last week. Is like the alter ego, so to speak, like the daytime Bray Wyatt and the nighttime Fiend, so to speak. I was kind of curious when he came out, like he was all, he was Bray Wyatt, happy-go-lucky, kind of lunatic, deal, and he wasn't the Fiend. So I'm like, when I saw him come out that way, I was like, maybe does he lose here? I didn't think he was going to. I didn't think he was going to lose, but I figured if he was going to lose, that was the best chance for him to lose if he was Bray Wyatt, not the Fiend. So I thought that was interesting. You're right. There was a lot of verses. Didn't realize there was a lot there. The match itself was what it was. It wasn't to me. It was forgettable, to be honest with you. I didn't think it was that great of a match. But I do agree with you at the end there with Daniel Bryan. My wife and I were watching it, and she's like, "Wow, he looks like he looks like when he first started." I was like, I agree.
He looked probably even skinnier.
Yeah, he did. He just looked skinnier, younger. The new haircut. Obviously, obviously in previous episodes of SmackDown, he lost his hair, so to speak. So, I think it's a nice, refreshing look. He's going back to the old Daniel Bryan look, and he looks like a young man. So, I mean, he doesn't look older because I figured he looked a lot older with the way his hair was and his beard was before. So it's kind of cool. It's maybe it's a reinvigorated Daniel Bryan. Maybe they could do something with it. I don't know, but. I thought it was interesting that he handled his business against Bray Wyatt the way he did at the end of that match.
So one of the other matches on the pay-per-view card obviously saw Bobby Lashley win against Rusev.
Rusev, yeah.
Well, he wasn't on Monday Night Raw because the story became that Bobby Lashley being asked by Lana to propose. Yeah. Do you see this kind of all blowing up in Lana's face? This reminds me a lot of the Stephanie McMahon's Chris Jericho. Or the Stephanie McMahon Triple H wedding that, he kind of led her along and then turned on her and pedigreed her on her wedding day, which ended up setting up WrestleMania's match for Chris Jericho with Triple H in WrestleMania 18. It looked like it was making that turn for a second. They teased it with Bobby Lashley saying, "I don't like people telling me what to do."
But it's okay, it's you.
Yes. But I mean, it looked like we might be going down that road right there. And I'm starting to see where this storyline is progressing.
Yeah, I mean, again, I feel Rusev. We kind of figured Rusev was going to lose that match anyways. I figured the way it played out.
I thought maybe Rusev would win. A face winning the match, kind of getting some sort of revenge.
I didn't see it because
that might be a positive from this pay-per-view. We had a lot of heels. I mean, both with Bobby Lashley and then Corbin getting one over on Roman Reigns.
I know. I mean, I don't know what I don't remember the fan reaction to it, but I'm not really surprised that Corbin won with assistance from Ziggler among others. That to me, I was kind of surprised. I was hoping to see Roman Reigns win. WWE loves Corbin. I mean, Corbin's a really good heel. I mean, he's probably the second best heel in sports entertainment right now, behind maybe MJF and AEW. So I mean, obviously WWE sees a lot in him. Obviously he's got Ziggler and Rude and the Revival were in tow, so to speak. So that was a surprise. I thought Roman Reigns was going to win that match. I thought Bobby Lashley was going to win, and I wasn't surprised that Lana was the reason why he got put over on that match. Now I have to ask you not to go through all the results of it, but one of the highlights for me, actually two takeaways I want to take from the show. Buddy Murphy, Aleister Black, I thought that was a fantastic match. I really enjoyed that.
Yes, lasted a lot longer than I thought it would.
Yeah, that was a great match. I think Buddy and Aleister did a great job. Great combos. Like they kind of had a draw at points there. That was cool. I thought that was one of the better matches of the night. I really enjoyed the men's tag team match. I thought that was good with the Revival in there. That was a great match. I thought both those matches were the highlights of the night. I mean, what are your takeaways from TLC?
Yeah, I thought the show started, pretty strong with the New Day versus the Revival, the tag team belts on the line. I mean, overall, I think it's I don't want to say it's as forgettable as, some of the, 09, 2010 pay-per-views, but it seems to be a pay-per-view that just, like I said, if it was a pay-per-view, you have to buy it based on the card, I think it would have been pretty low. I mean, the fact
Probably.
that it really lacked championships. I mean, it lacked, no women's championship was on the line. It was the women's tag team belts were the only ones on the line in that regard. No Bailey, no Becky defending the belt, no IC title on the line.
I don't remember.
No US title on
singles,
the line.
No singles. Yeah, no singles titles. Yeah.
Just the 3 tag belts.
It was. I mean, I will say aside. I want to backtrack to the men's tag match. I was hoping the Revival was going to win. I was kind of disappointed that the New Day won. But the Revival are good, so I'm not too worried about it. I mean, how did you feel about the end of that match? Were you expecting it? Like, what were you thinking? You think Revival was going to win, or were you on the New Day?
They've been doing a lot with the Revival when it comes to giving them opportunities, but kind of holding them back at the same time. And so the result didn't surprise me really at all.
Now I got to ask you. Speaking of kind of they're holding individuals back, and then kind of like let them win some matches. A guy that I'm still trying to figure out like what the backstage is going to do with him. For a minute, they like kind of I'm talking about Humberto Carrillo. Mm-hmm. He was like on fire for a minute, and then like for a week or two or a short time, it looked like they were down on him. Now he's back in the picture. Now him and Andrade have a great storyline, and we're also seeing the little fractures between Andrade and Zelina. I mean, do you think those two will break up? I hope not, but I mean. Do you think those cracks are gonna destroy that duo, so to speak? What do you think?
I do think that's eventually going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen as soon as maybe the Bobby Lashley versus Lana thing. But yeah, with Carrillo, I obviously see the Andrade storyline going on right now, and I mean he kind of came on the scene really quick, so I don't really take away from slowing him down a little bit. He was on fire, but you don't want to. I hate when they push people too much. And they push him too quick, and they just kind of see that things are taking off. I mean, Kofi Kingston, a lot of people love that, but I didn't love it. And I know a lot of people think that it's 9 years in the making. It wasn't 9 years in the making. To me, it felt like it was just a few months in the making, because it wasn't 9 years in the making of him being denied championship shots and, really being in. He wasn't Roman Reigns. He wasn't Seth Rollins. He wasn't somebody who you ever put in the real championship pictures. Yes, he had IC belts and US belts, and he did a lot of great Royal Rumble things. But, it was the result of what he did in a few months. And technically, that could have just been Mustafa Ali.
Pretty much. I mean, they just kind of flipped it there. So.
I don't like when they just see fan reaction and then they just push it, like, really fast. I'm fine with them putting him in, putting a spotlight on him and kind of letting him grow. And I don't want to hold him back in the regard of then do nothing with him. But, yes, I like where they have him right now, especially with Andrade. Kind of toying with maybe going for the U.S. belt. I know Rey Mysterio currently has it. Andrade has the spot to now have the match for the U.S. belt because he technically won the gauntlet match that took up an hour of Monday Night Raw. But, yeah, I mean, I like the idea of the gauntlet match on Monday Night Raw, showing that he can kind of, Humberto can kind of put on a longer match, can kind of be in the ring for a longer period of time.
I thought he did a solid job. I think he's one of those up-and-coming future stars. He's on that same trajectory for me as Andrade, so I'm excited to see what they do with this little feud they have going on. Now, moving over to the U.S. Championship, what are your takes on Seth Rollins entering the fray there, so to speak, and not maybe going towards the bigger belt?
Is he entering the fray really in the U.S. belt, or is he just trying to impose his will on? I
think it's a combination. I think well, plus, I mean, I get from a storyline perspective that on last week's show. The pipe was given to Kevin Owens to, take care of business with Seth's new boys, AOP. So I get where the storyline is involved, but I was kind of curious to get your thoughts on, and like going for the U.S. title versus maybe.
I don't know if he's technically going to
up.
go for the U.S. title. I think the way that he's going to fit into this storyline, it's going to be him versus Kevin Owens. But I think the way that he's going to fit into this storyline is really just tag up good guys for him to then be able to go up, because he's going to obviously be with AOP. So for him to maybe on a few throwaway Monday Night Raws and maybe even a throwaway pay-per-view kind of have good guys team up. So obviously Rey Mysterio, because he's going to pick on him, is then going to team up with Kevin Owens and maybe give some good guys for the one side. So it's not just Seth Rollins versus Kevin Owens or Seth Rollins, and AOP. So they can do 6-man tags, that kind of nonsense. Maybe Randy Orton and Rey Mysterio team up with Seth Rollins and AJ Styles, that kind of nonsense.
Now, let me ask you this. If Seth Rollins wins the U.S. title, do you see AOP getting themselves the tag title sooner rather than later? What do you think there? So they have all the gold, so to speak?
Yeah, I think them just having done this in NXT, I think that would be kind of dumb.
Or I wouldn't surprise me though.
Yes, they kind of just did the whole all the gold with the Undisputed Era in NXT. So I'm not really a fan of them doing that.
I'm not either.
I think Seth Rollins just keeping storyline going with Kevin Owens. Not necessarily going for the world belt at WrestleMania or thereafter. I think though, like I said, keeping his storyline going with Kevin Owens and seeing maybe where that could lead him towards WrestleMania, maybe a match with Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns is traded over to Raw or vice versa. That's more or less where I see this going. I don't see Seth Rollins holding any championships from here to probably after WrestleMania. I don't see him holding any belts. I see him just kind of keeping this storyline going as being a bad guy and kind of teaming up with AOP and doing a little faction thing.
Now, speaking of factions that Seth was a part of, I don't know if you caught it. I know that the Twitterverse caught it on there was a countdown on WWE Network, top 10 debuts in the last decade, and the Shield was on that list. And of course, I don't know how people figure this stuff out. I mean, I had to go back and check the video, the original video that someone else posted versus the new video. So the Shield debuted, and they took Dean Ambrose's name off of it. It was like when Michael Cole was like, it was like Roman Reigns, Dean Ambrose, and Seth Rollins. It was like Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins. Like you could tell they cut it out. It was
really.
I was
like, so in the audio you're saying.
And the audio side. I mean, you still see Dean in there doing his thing, where they do the Shield bomb and whatnot. But it's like they were like trying to get away from using his name on WWE programming. I thought that was kind of interesting. It's to me, I don't know why they would make such a deal of it, because it's not like it's Dean Ambrose in AEW. It's Jon Moxley. I get it's the same guy.
Yeah, they still sell some Dean Ambrose stuff. They even sell some Enzo Amore stuff on Shop Zone if you go on there.
Do they really?
It's in the clearance rack, clearly, but they still do sell some of the stuff. They don't just remove it because there's still some money to be had, whether it be
for sure
$4.95 plus shipping or whatever it is. But yeah, I mean, I think that's that is kind of petty to have done that.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Because the Shield was something that WWE created and was still, you're not really highlighting Dean Ambrose. I can understand that you're not going to say that him winning the world belt was, your top moment of the year or anything like that. But I mean, the Shield itself, especially seeing that they're not trying to really promote the Shield anymore. If they were still trying to sell the Shield, like D-Generation X, they were trying to resell that later on without some members of DX.
Yeah.
Then I can understand, but you're not currently trying to sell the Shield. You are admitting that the Shield is dead without Dean Ambrose because they killed it with having the Shield's final night, because they knew it was Dean Ambrose's final night.
They knew Dean Ambrose was
So they
out.
knew that Dean Ambrose is a part of the Shield. If they didn't think that Dean Ambrose was part of the Shield, they would have kept the Shield going. They would have never said it was dead. Dean would have left, and they would have never made mention that it was the Shield's final appearance.
Yeah, it was. I agree. I think it was petty. Another moment from that list. I don't remember the exact order. I think the AJ Styles moment was it was top 3. I may have been number 1. I was watching it a little bit earlier before we recorded today, and AJ Styles was on there, and I forgot how much of a pop he got at Royal Rumble. That was pretty,
and
that
I
was
think
sweet.
There's really not a ton to choose from, because WWE doesn't give us as many to choose from as they did in decades past.
Yes.
When it comes to debuts and surprises, because everything is kind of, just combed over and talked about so extensively before they come in. Even CM Punk, when he made his debut on Backstage, I mean, we kind of saw that coming for months and months and months. Mm-hmm. So it stinks that we don't get to have the chance of more AJ Styles type entrances.
Yeah, that's the crappy part. I mean, unfortunately, with social media and whatnot, things get spoiled ahead of time. Like, I mean, we already know John Morrison is here, in WWE. So,
and we won't meet, mainly because I have next week off, so I don't want to spoil it for myself, because of the fact that there has never been more of a time for me to just have freedom to watch professional wrestling. So thinking spoil. I'm not going to spoil the Monday Night Raw that has already been taped for next Monday night so that they can get the holidays off just for myself. But yes, it has already been taped. Yeah. So, and to be honest with you, that's what always kind of stinks is that the holiday editions of the shows, mainly because they know that a lot of people aren't going to watch because they're busy. But there's never been a time where I could really watch a show more, and they're always the worst.
Yeah,
so I don't think if I did find out what happened, I would really regret it because it's just probably a bunch of tag team matches. I already know that it's going to be a 6-man tag for one of the matches with Randy Orton teaming up, against the OC and that kind of nonsense. But yeah, it's too bad that they can't put like a pay-per-view on Christmas Eve. That'd be awesome in my eyes. But
I wouldn't mind it either, but I know a lot of people would disagree because family and all. I get that. I mean, let me ask you this: going back to John Morrison, do you think Royal Rumble is the time where he comes? I mean, does that make the most sense, or is it too obvious? I mean, where do you think he should debut?
I definitely have a feeling that if whatever WWE is going to do, they're going to pre-announce it. Unfortunately, I know he's already here. That's not the surprise.
Well, yeah, because
they're going to pre-announce whenever he debuts because just WWE.
They like to ruin.
They love to ruin stuff.
And that's the thing too. It's not like he's not in WWE. He's already been doing shows on the network. So
yes,
I haven't seen all of it yet, but I saw clips of it recently. That he was on some show I can't remember off the top of my head, but he's on the network and it was not like old stuff from the archives. It was like current stuff. So it's like he's in WWE. So it's like now we're all just kind of twiddling our kind of sitting on our hands and twiddling our thumbs saying, okay, when's he gonna be wrestling again? And I think what they're going to do is, and it's probably the most obvious. I think they're going to debut him at the Royal Rumble. But I mean, I've said before on previous shows, why not bring him at NXT, make him be like a surprise, like entrant into the, into the title picture there, maybe. I don't know. I mean, they have options, which makes it a little bit more intriguing. So, I mean, he could go to Raw, SmackDown, or NXT. So he's got 3 options. All of it could be one show, Royal Rumble, because we do get NXT superstars on the Royal Rumble.
Yes, it has already been kind of established that this year at the Royal Rumble, it's going to be 10, 10, and 10 for the Royal Rumble.
Which is good. I'm okay with it because you get to see some fresh faces. Hopefully, aside from the NXT, the other 20 entrants, hopefully it's not like
to be honest with you, though, that does kind of, if it is 10, 10, and 10, that does ruin it because we will know all 30 going into the Royal Rumble. And there are people, for example, Jeff Jarrett was in the Royal Rumble last year. Well, he's not a part of any of those 3 brands.
And let me ask you, are they officially advertising 10, 10, 10?
They're not. Well, they're not officially advertising anything, but that seems to be the going consensus that it's going to be even between NXT, Raw, and SmackDown.
Here's what I would say.
And to be honest with you, I mean, if there's only 10 from Raw and 10 from SmackDown, I mean, there really isn't a lot of room for surprises. You're keeping a lot of people out of it.
Yeah, and
if you're bringing in Jeff Jarrett, I mean, or 2 or 3 other surprises, you're really keeping a lot of people off the card.
What they really should do, I don't know if this is the bad way of looking at it, but maybe they should make it 999. So you got 27, and then bring in 3 surprises. Maybe maybe 3 legends or an entrance, like a debut of John Morrison, something like that. I would like to leave maybe 2 or 3, so you still get 9 of each, and then you bring in a couple of old school guys. You bring in not saying he's going to do it, but maybe bring in like the Kevin Nashes of the world, somebody like that. I would like to see a couple surprises, which I love the Royal Rumble. It's my favorite match of the year, but of course I get let down every single year. I think the last great one was, like we just talked about, AJ Styles. So hopefully WWE don't let me down. I love the Royal Rumbles, but don't screw me on this again.
So quickly moving on, let's talk a little NWA Into the Fire. Now, a few things I want to bring up with NWA Into the Fire pay-per-view. It ended up Nick Aldis defended his belt, and we saw the debut in NWA, or the current version of NWA. He's been technically there before. Marty Scurll, and that's kind of how the show ended. Marty Scurll made his debut in the NWA Into the Fire, came down, kind of did the stare down with the champion. We saw Aaron Stevens, a.k.a. Damian Sandow, now wants to be known as Shooter Stevens, as he is now the North American or national champion of NWA. And I'm trying to think of any other big takeaways. Really not too many. And I guess for those who aren't really familiar, since the Jim Cornette thing, Wade Barrett, if you haven't watched the last few episodes or the pay-per-view, Wade Barrett has stepped into the announcing role. So I guess my question with you when it comes to that is, Wade Barrett, do you want to see him just kind of be an announcer nowadays? I think he's a great announcer. Or would you like to see him make another run in a wrestling organization?
I would like to see him make another run in a wrestling organization. I've always been a fan of Barrett's work in the ring, on the mic. My personal favorite, I don't know if it's yours, but one of my favorites was the bad news. I've got some bad news. I love that. I love that whole gimmick that he had. I think he wrestles well. He's got the look. He's got the, he has the package. And he's been doing acting. I mean, not any big films. I don't think. I think it's been more of like the indie circuit or like small budget. But he's been acting. So he's been doing. He's been getting his acting chops in. So
Evil 4.
Was he in Evil 4?
No, I don't think there is.
I was gonna say I haven't seen the first one. So
I know there is at least 2. That's all. There is 2 in case.
Hopefully, it's not like it's Saw where there's like a ton
Well, I mean, there are 8 Marines or 7 Marines. There's a lot of Marines.
Yeah,
When Marine 1 wasn't that great.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of Marines.
Yeah, there's a lot of Marines. That's true. But
there's a lot of those.
I would like. I mean, he's got good chops. He's good acting chops, good voice, good everything. So I mean, that doesn't surprise me that he's doing a solid job at the announce desk. But I would like to see him in another run.
How long do you see this NWA? Now, it's great the format they're using. I'd love to see that used regardless of where they are. But how long do you see even because the pay-per-view looked exactly like the shows when it comes to the setup and the crowd size? The crowd size, maybe 200 because it's in a small studio.
Yeah.
How long do you see that being sustainable for NWA doing these shows out of the exact same studio? Do you see them maybe having to grow to bigger studios? Do you see them traveling? Do you see that as a good idea, a bad idea?
I like it the way it is right now. At this point, I mean, maybe they outgrow themselves and they got to go somewhere else, a different studio, maybe a bigger studio. But at this point, I think it's a great niche. I think they're doing something that nobody else is doing. So I think it's.
I don't want to see them jump to arenas or anything like that. I would say maybe travel, and I say maybe around Georgia or that area, but maybe travel a little bit, but keep the same setup going.
Yeah, I think so. I think I would leave it the way it is for now. To be honest with you,
I was just I guess I was a little bit disappointed because for the pay-per-view event, it was exactly the same, and I understand they're trying to be focused on the wrestling, the whole old school style. But,
which I
do like a little bit of a difference, maybe a different apron, maybe just something to show, the difference between the TV show and the pay-per-view.
See, it doesn't bother me so much. I'm okay with that anyway, like the way it is right now. I mean, unless it bursts at the seams and they get so big that they need to make some changes, then maybe that's something they visit. But I think at this point, leave it the way it is.
Okay, I want to talk about Sting making it known to Sports Illustrated this week that he does have the ability in his body to get himself ready for one more match in WWE or professional wrestling, but the only offer he would even listen to or consider is The Undertaker. Should WWE take that for anything, or should they just, because he even says it's probably not going to happen. Would you, to be honest with you, would you still be that interested in seeing Sting versus The Undertaker this late on?
I mean, what the hell? And I mean, in wrestling, does anyone really retire? I mean, except for like Shawn Michaels. So, I mean, sure, throw him in. I mean, here at this point, we're almost at the end of the year. WrestleMania is only a couple months away. So if WWE wants it to happen, they need to get it rolling right now and like get those.
Well, the way that those guys are going, I guess it could happen at this WrestleMania or the next 5 years of WrestleMania. I mean, because of the fact that we're at a point now where they're not in the primes of their career and they're not even really in the just past the post. I think they're far enough away that whenever we get it, it's not going to be the greatest.
No, I don't think so either. I mean, I think Undertaker always needs, a little bit of time to get himself ready. He needs to know a couple months in advance that he's going to war, so to speak. He's going, he's going into that ring and that squared circle and going to battle, So, I mean, if they were going to pull something off like this, those boys would have to already commit to it already. So they have a couple months, get themselves in as best shape as they can, which obviously, due to their age and how their bodies have taken a lot of bumps over the years. I don't know what kind of match it would be, but I think WWE, I wouldn't put it past them to actually make it happen.
And finally, we talked about this off the air. You have to be a super, super, super wrestling nerd to buy this. But Bray Wyatt a couple weeks ago put his, custom-made championship with the Fiend face on television, and WWE is offering to sell it to you. Won't be in time for Christmas, and it's been on sale for a few weeks now, but they even mentioned then it wouldn't be at your house by Christmas time because of the detail of each belt being unique. There's no specific amount of belts. I mean, they'll sell as many. They just are telling you that each one is going to be custom-made. Bray Wyatt Fiend Championship belt made out of leather. There's no gold or diamonds or anything of that nature, but the price is going to be $6,500. Do you see anyone buying this who's buying this?
A wrestling enthusiast that has a huge bankroll, so to speak. I mean, the average Joes, I don't see them dishing out that much coin to do that, so to speak. I think it's those wrestling fans that maybe they're celebrities that are fans of the wrestling business, or it could be like, just a multi-millionaire, billionaire, whatever, some rich guy or gal that does it.
But I guess my problem is it doesn't seem to be like the Pawn Stars, like kind of glorious thing that you would want when it comes to wrestling. I understand $6,500 because it's like some relic of we found the old original champ, like something that's authentic too. That's another thing. Something that, the $6,500 because it's the ring skirt used at the first WrestleMania, like a real piece of memorabilia, a real piece of history. This is still something that they're going to make. I mean, Tom Savini, he's a special effects wizard. Obviously, anyone in the business of the movies knows him, and he's the one that helped, I guess, make some of the stuff for Bray Wyatt. So that is kind of a cool aspect, but it is not his official one. What I mean, I would maybe see the price tag if it was the one he used on TV. I get that, that's why things go for top dollar. Those are the same seats from Yankee Stadium. That's somebody's championship ring, something like that. This is still, though, something that is not that. It is not a one and only.
No, it really isn't. I mean, again, I wouldn't.
If I was a multimillionaire, I want the one and only. I want the first ever edition of this magazine. I want the first ever championship belt that Hulk Hogan wore that he lost at the airport. That kind of stuff.
It's an interesting concept, but I'm not on board.
I would love to see the numbers on who buys this and how many of them they sell. If it was really worth it. I know a lot of things are expensive. The regular championship belts are really out of my price range for the most part. So the fact that this thing here is $6,500, and it really it's custom made and has leather, but like I said, no jewels or diamonds or gold or anything of the worth value other than somebody's time and effort in creating this. So that's going to do it for this week's edition of the show. We're going to take next week off. We're going to come back the following week. We'll break down some of the stuff you were talking about with AJ Styles in the debut when it comes to maybe some of the best of the year, best of the decade, ending out 2019. We'll talk about that stuff. Like I said, no show next week, so that's going to do it. And there's probably not a lot to talk about. SmackDown, Raw, they'll all be pre-taped anyways.
Yep.
So for Brandon the Icebreaker Clements, myself at KRock Jared, and the show, most importantly, at Heel to the Face on Twitter, we will see you for our end of the year recap. Till then, see ya.